Hi, this is Chloe here at magicalwellness.co. Last week I wrote something about the importance of combining perhaps the energy of the Empress and the Emperor, um, using them as a way to help yourself to creatively design new structures or find playful ways to create a more disciplined routine for yourself, or just as a way of finding ways that are nurturing to yourself but that help give you structures and boundaries. And so, one of the things that I've been playing around with over the course of the week is the idea of creating new, healthier habits, because oftentimes you might have a habit that you want to break, a bad habit that you want to break, but you might find that it's really hard to do so. And breaking a bad habit, tapping can be great to do that, as you sort of talk through what the bad habit is and why you like it, or what's bad about it, and what perhaps is underlying it emotionally. But another way of going about it is to create a new positive habit that will either replace the bad habit or perhaps just interrupt it a little bit so that you don't fall into it quite as easily. And so that kind of is what these cards, the Empress and the Emperor, led me to think about creative ways of doing that. And so I thought it might be helpful to do a little video on how to create a new positive habit and to combine several different aspects in that. One of them is the idea that when creating a new habit, it can be helpful to chain it to a habit that you already have. So to link it to something that you already do. And this is a way of kind of making it more likely that you will actually do your new habit, is by linking them. Another way of making a new habit more manageable, easier to actually achieve and to create into a habit, like not just to do once or twice and forget about it, is to use the power of visualization. And not everyone is great at visualizing. I have to say, I'm one of those people. I really struggle to visualize things. I love, for example, cards, because that gives me a picture as a focus, because I find it very hard to visualize within my own head. And it's one of those things, it doesn't mean that you aren't able to use the power of visualization. It's perhaps just that you need to use other ways of bringing that power into your practice. And so what we're going to do is kind of like that, because I think that tapping is a way of moving the energy in your body. It's a way of getting things flowing. It's also a way of unblocking things. So unblocking stuff that's been stopping you from getting rid of a bad habit, or stopping you from keeping at creating a new good habit. And with tapping, what you normally do is kind of talk while you tap. And so you can, with your words, create a picture for yourself. And especially, I like tapping, I always tap pretty much with my eyes closed when I'm tapping for myself. So if you tap with your eyes closed, you kind of have this story rolling in your mind that you're listening to as you tap. And it's not exactly identical to visualization, but it has a lot of the same power, a lot of the same effect as a strong visualization practice. So we're going to combine chaining and visualization. And another thing as well is bilateral stimulation. And that's kind of like, what are you talking about, Chloe? Okay, so bilateral stimulation is basically just the idea of providing stimulation to both sides of your brain at the same time, or very close together. So for example, if you think about when you're dreaming and your eyes move back and forth in REM sleep, in REM sleep, that is bilateral stimulation, because your eyes are going from one side to the other very rapidly. And so, one theory at least is that it stimulates both sides of your brain, because you are kind of moving from one side to the other, because As most people know, your right side is more associated with the left brain and your left side with the right brain, and so on. So if you move from one side to the other of the body or of your visual field, or also with hearing, this is what's behind some of those kind of sound systems that you hear about for meditation and so on. Part of it is about stimulating both sides of the brain by having sounds coming through in audio, but different sounds and what have you. So we can use that notion as well when we're tapping for ourselves. And this is something that I quite often do, but I'm going to do it very purposely here and kind of show you, break it down a little bit. So the way that I do it, for example, is that I tap with alternate hands on the points. And I don't do this with all points because some points it really doesn't work that well. But you can start speeding it up and going, quite quickly. It doesn't have to be hard when you tap, so you can just tap gently. And it works very well with the crown chakra, with the top of the head. Also with the eyebrow points, it's quite easy because, you have two eyebrows anyway, so hey. And the same with the sides of the face. So at the start, you might want to go more slowly so that you're consciously tapping both sides. You can speed it up. See how that works? Yay. And under the eyes as well. With the point under the nose, I find that a little bit too, I guess you can. Yeah, you can. I don't tend to do it. I tend to do one hand on one of the points and a different hand on the other point. So that's still sort of not at the same time, but you could. It's not actually impossible. So you stimulate both sets of points or both sides a little bit, because when you tap with two fingers, you're not tapping exactly the same. Like there, I kind of feel it, my whole finger is pressing a bit more on that side, and here it's pressing a bit more on this side. So it is slightly different, and it will still bring that bilateral stimulation into play. And obviously on the collarbones, it's very easy. And under the arms, you can do it almost as a little hug. And in fact, in a different technique, which sometimes uses this, they use something called the butterfly hug, where you place your own hands on your own shoulders, and then you can kind of tap gently like that, doing once again the bilateral stimulation. So you can choose any of these ways of tapping. I quite like moving through the points and alternating tapping with both hands, because I find the movement in itself, when I tap here and when I tap here, it brings movement to my thought process, it brings movement to my creativity, and that's part of what you want when you're trying to create a new habit. Because if you kind of have a fixed idea of, I need the habit to be like this, it's kind of rigid and it might not quite work for you, and there might be this or that or whatever. If you sort of allow that the habit could work this way or that way, and maybe as you're tapping you creatively think of a different thing that you could do, well, hey, great, because the flow of tapping does foster creativity. It fosters a more creative mindset. It helps to unblock rigid thinking. So that's a way that you can actually use it, as almost like, you could use this for brainstorming. It's the movement through the points I really like. I find that more movement helps to stimulate creativity rather than just sticking with 2 points. This is more of a soothing one, but it is a good one for bilateral stimulation, and it is nice and simple. So I'm kind of just trying to give you a lot of options here. And the idea with this would be that, for example, you could think about what habit it is that you want to break, or perhaps what is blocking you from creating the new habit, and use the traditional kind of setup statement. So, for example, a lot of people that I see and talk to mention that they would like to go to bed earlier, more consistently, and yet they don't quite manage to do it. So even though I never seem to get to bed on time and I'm always tired, I completely and deeply love and accept myself. Even though I always faff in the evening, or I have so much on that I just can't quite get to bed because there's one more thing that I need to do, I completely and deeply love and forgive myself. Even though I wish I could get to bed, but I just don't seem able to do it, and I'm not sure why, I completely and deeply love and accept myself. So that's the kind of thing that you could use for whatever your issue is. I'm giving you an example here. So if it is the case that you want to get to bed earlier, you can use that as a sort of little script. And then think about what new habit that you want to create is and what it might look like. So when would you do it? How would you do it? Where would you do it? Really think about all of those things. Who would you do it with? Are you doing it on your own? Are you doing it with other people? You know, the who, what, when, where, why, how, all of that. Because the more detail you can bring to it, the better. And while you're tapping, you might think of different details or different ways of doing it. So I'm going to give you one example, but this really is just meant as an example so that you can kind of think about what would work for you. And we'll stick with the example of not getting to bed on time. So the next part was the idea of chaining. And it's really helpful to create a pattern, a routine, because then you can add your new habit into an old habit. Or if you don't have anything that you kind of think, oh yes, I could definitely add it to that. Because I mean, for example, for some people, if you wanted to create a meditation practice before bed, you could do it as, you know, after I brush my teeth, I will go and sit on the sofa and do my tapping meditation there for at least 3 minutes and no more than 10 minutes. So, you know, you're kind of creating your specification, you're making it more specific, more detailed so that you'll know whether or not you've achieved it, but also you're giving your mind more to work with, either if you're visualizing this or just creating that story for yourself of what this will look like so that you feel it. And for example, with the going to sleep one thing that I sometimes recommend to people is, you know, if the problem is that you're kind of either sat at your computer or sat on the sofa or wherever it is, whatever it is that you're doing, and you kind of get distracted and then, you know, suddenly it's way later than you were planning and you haven't gone to bed yet. One thing that I highly recommend is maybe setting an alarm or even 2 alarms, maybe 5 minutes apart or 10 minutes apart, as a kind of reminder, okay, it's time to get up from wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and go and start getting ready for bed. So that's something that you can do that, for example, you could then chain through this process with, after I hear my alarm, I will get up and start getting ready for bed. Or, you know, that's the example of going to bed. After I brush my teeth, I will sit and meditate. Or maybe it's, you know, after I brush my hair, or after I take the rubbish out, or, you know, whatever it is, you need to find what your pattern is. So that's why kind of today I don't want to do a very detailed proper tap through, because this really is, the more personal you make it, the more specific you make it, the better it is. So you've done your kind of, even though I'm stuck with this habit that I don't like, and then you would move into, I want to get to bed earlier. Taking a deep breath. And from now on, after I hear my alarm, I will get up and start getting ready for bed. I will get up and go upstairs, brush my teeth. After I hear my alarm, I will get up and start getting ready for bed. After I brush my teeth, I will brush my hair. I will put on my pajamas. I will go and kiss my kids goodnight, whatever it is for you. I will go and meditate. And so this point here isn't one that is always used in traditional EFT. But if you think about it, when you say, I'm doing that, yeah, that's me, that's where you tap. So especially for things that you're working on where it's about changing something in yourself, in your own patterns, your habits, your routines, I really like this point, and it's an easy one to tap two-handed as well. So I will do all of those things that I do before I go to bed. After I hear my alarm, I will get myself up off that sofa. No more dilly-dallying, no more faffing. I will just get up off the sofa and go upstairs and get ready for bed. I'll brush my teeth, I'll brush my hair, I'll wash my face, I'll put on my pajamas, I'll give the kids a last kiss goodnight. All those little things that I do before bed, I will do after I hear my alarm going and I get up off the sofa. So I hope you get the idea with that. It's kind of talking yourself through it. If you can visualize well, then you can have your eyes closed and visualize while you're tapping through. If you find visualizing hard, then don't bother with it. Just tell yourself that story. Think about exactly where you are. I'll go to the bathroom and I'll get my toothbrush out of the cabinet and I'll put toothpaste on it. You're really telling yourself the whole story so that you kind of get your energy fully behind it and perhaps notice where there might be any problems and then you can unblock those. So this is a little bit less clear and focused than some of my videos are because I really think this is a great technique to use, a great way of bringing together a number of different really powerful ways of releasing an old habit and especially creating a new habit, either to replace the old habit or to interrupt it. But it really is about what is the habit that you want and what are you going to chain it to, and I can't tell you that. I could do a thing of saying after I ... and you fill in the blanks, but I didn't think that would be as helpful as kind of explaining the why behind it and the how that you're actually going to do it and giving you a little example. So I hope that you have found this video helpful. Please do leave me comments. If you have any questions, you can put those in the comments or contact me directly on chloe@magicalwellness.co. I would love to hear from you, whether in the comments or via email. So if there is anything I can help you with in trying to create positive new habits or break old habits, let me know. Blessed be.